The knock came long after midnight. 3 sharp raps at my door, too precise to be chance. When I opened it, the corridor was empty. Only a sealed envelope lay on the floor, wax the color of blood. The imprint was no crest of Rome, but a black crown pressed deep. I had seen that crown once before, carved into stone in a forbidden chapel. Inside the envelope was a slip of parchment, 5 words in fading ink. The black papacy lives still. The lantern at my bedside hissed. The air grew thin, as if the room itself recoiled from the message. The door creaked again. Father Brenner stood in the corridor, broad-shouldered, his face unreadable. "You have been summoned," he said. "The archives, now." I followed him through stairwells of stone that swallowed sound. The deeper we descended, the colder it became. At the 3rd landing he paused, lifting a gate of iron. His voice was low but steady. "You know the rumors," he said. "If there is truly a black papal line, it did not grow alone. Some believe the Illuminati planted the seed." The word struck like a stone in water. Illuminati. I had heard it whispered in mockery, but never in the measured tone Brenner used now. We pressed on. At the end of the passage stood a circle of light. Within it, waiting, was Cardinal Varros. His robe drank the torch glow, his gaze colder than the stone beneath our feet. "Nathan Corwin," he said, "you have been chosen to see what most must never know. Once you look, you cannot look away." He placed a black book on the table between us. Its leather cover was cracked with age. The mark on its spine was the same crown I had just seen in wax. Varros opened it. Pages of names stretched before me, each followed by the same black crown. Cardinals, princes, ministers, men whose choices had bent the world. "What am I seeing?" I asked. "Proof," Varros said, "that another line of power has walked beside the throne of Peter for centuries. They call it the Black Papacy. If this record is true, it shadows every pope we have ever known." Huh? Brenner leaned closer. His voice rumbled behind me. "Read carefully. Between these names is a second language. Patronage, signs, symbols. It speaks of old hands guiding both friend and foe. Hands once belonging to the Illuminati." The word came again. Stronger, heavier. Varros turned another page. "Cardinal Neris carried this book. Poison was poured into his cup to silence him. He lives, but his tongue is bound. The oath or the fear, we cannot say. What we do know is this: if the Black Papacy prepares to rise, it will not do so alone." I scanned the names. Kings who condemned wars they secretly funded. Bishops who preached purity but bartered at night, each crowned in black ink. "Why me?" My voice trembled more than I wished. Varros shut the book and laid both hands upon it. "Because you follow truth where others refuse. And if that truth is poison, you will drink it and endure. If it is rot, you will cut it out." Brenner shifted at my side. "Understand, Nathan, 2 powers once bargained in shadow. Rome and the Illuminati divided the world. That bargain rotted. Now each wants the whole table." The torch hissed. Dust fell like dry rain. Varros slid the book toward me. Its weight was more than paper. Its leather felt cold as stone. "You will read," he said. "You will go where the lines converge, and you will return with something that cannot be denied." "And if what I find cannot be allowed to live?" I asked. Varros's eyes did not waver. "Then you will do what is necessary." The circle of light dimmed. For an instant, I swore the crown on the cover glimmered like an eye, watching. I tucked the book beneath my arm. Its spine pressed against my ribs like a second heartbeat. As Brenner led me back into the dark, he spoke without turning. "If a thing lives too long in shadow, it hates the sun. Be ready for teeth." I said nothing. The book was heavy. The stair was narrow, and I knew this was no summons to investigate. It was the beginning of a war already raging in silence. The book lay heavy on the table, its cracked spine creaking whenever I shifted its weight. I had left Cardinal Varos and Father Brenner hours ago, but their words clung to me like ash. If the Black Papacy prepares to rise, you must see it before the world does. Alone in my chamber, I unlatched the binding and opened the volume once more. The names glared back, neat rows inked with precision. Bishops, princes, cardinals, and beside every name, the Black Crown. But this time, I noticed something I had missed in the light of the torch. Faint scratches lingered in the margins, marks almost invisible until the lantern flame bent against them. They were not letters, they were symbols, triangles, circles intersected by lines, keys without locks. I leaned closer, my skin prickled. The patterns were not random. They repeated in strange cycles, shifting every few pages. The more I stared, the more they formed a rhythm, as if they were notes of a song written in silence. I turned the pages quickly. At the bottom of one entry, beneath the name of a cardinal long dead, I found a symbol that made my chest tighten, a triangle encircling an eye. Illuminati. The word burned in my mind. Brenner had said it already, but here it was in ink, carved into the ledger centuries before me. I whispered the name aloud, and for a moment I thought the air itself recoiled. The flame of the lantern shrank as if something unseen had leaned close to listen. I traced the mark with a fingertip. The ink was dry, but the chill it carried sank into my skin. Turning further, I found others, symbols I had seen etched into forgotten stonework in cloisters, scratched into the backs of relics, half hidden by time. All converged here, catalogued in secret. This was not a book of memory. It was a map. I set the lantern closer and began to copy the signs onto parchment. Triangles, spirals, crowns, a dagger crossing a star. Hours passed as I worked. The chamber grew colder, yet sweat ran along my spine. The silence thickened until even the scratching of my quill seemed too loud. Then came the whisper. It was not a voice from the hall, nor the scrape of stone. It came from the book itself, rising from the pages as my pen touched ink, a breath thin but insistent. I froze, quill hovering. Again it came, a sound like words half-formed. I bent close, ears straining. The hidden sanctuary? The lantern trembled. The page shivered beneath my hands as if alive. I turned quickly to the index of names. There it was again, scratched beside 3 entries, faint but deliberate. The hidden sanctuary. I knew the phrase. It belonged to a legend told only in whispers among archivists, a chamber beneath the catacombs sealed for centuries, built by a pope whose name had been erased from record. Some said it was where the darkest bargains of the church had been buried. Others claimed it was where the Illuminati had been allowed to plant their first seed inside Rome. I sat back, chest tight. The Black Papacy, the Illuminati. The whispers were no longer rumor. They were written here, encoded in a book I now held. My hand trembled as I closed the volume. The sound echoed like a coffin ceiling. A knock shattered the silence. I snapped my head toward the door. The lantern shook, casting long shadows across the walls. "Corwin," came Father Brenner's voice. His tone was low, but urgent. "Open." I hesitated. My fingers clutched the spine of the book. Had he been waiting all this time, listening? Did he know what the pages had spoken? I opened the door slowly. Brenner stood with his lantern raised, his pale eyes reflecting the flame. He glanced at the book clutched in my hands. "You heard it, did you not?" he asked. For a moment I could not breathe. "Heard what?" His jaw tightened. "The archives are not silent, Nathan. They never were. That book does not record history. It feeds on it, and now it is fed on you." The lantern between us flickered, and in its glow I swore I saw the black crown on the cover shift, as if ink had bled fresh again. Brenner stepped into the chamber, closing the door behind him. His shadow fell across mine, swallowing it whole. "You will go to the catacombs," he said. "You will find the hidden sanctuary, and you will see what even Rome fears to name." The book trembled in my grip, whispering without words, and in that moment I realized this was no longer investigation. It was dissent. The catacombs had always unsettled me, but that night they felt like a throat swallowing me whole. Father Brenner walked ahead, his lantern held high, its flame trembling against the walls. The air was damp, heavy with the weight of centuries. Bones stared at us from the niches, skulls stacked like mute witnesses. Each turn deeper carried the stench of dust and old oil, and a silence so dense it felt alive. The book weighed in my arms, its spine pressing hard into my ribs. The symbols I had copied led us here. Triangles, crowns, and at their center, the phrase whispered by the pages themselves, "The hidden sanctuary." After an hour of descent, Brenner stopped before a wall marked by faint carvings. His lantern brushed the stone, revealing a crown etched above an eye. "The same symbol," I murmured. He nodded. "The hidden sanctuary." He pressed a palm against the crown. At first nothing happened. Then the stone groaned, shifting as if pushed by unseen hands. A slab slid aside, exhaling a draft colder than death. A narrow stair spiraled downward. I gripped the lantern tighter. "How long has this been here?" "Longer than anyone alive," Brenner said, "and longer than anyone should have allowed." We descended. The stair coiled like a serpent, swallowing the light. At its base yawned a chamber unlike any I had seen in Rome. The walls were lined with marble, yet streaked with soot. At the center stood an altar of obsidian. Upon it rested a scroll sealed in glass, its edges browned with age. The air thrummed, a pressure in my skull, as though the stone itself remembered. I stepped forward, setting the book beside the altar. The black crown on its cover seemed to pulse, answering the relic before me. My hand shook as I lifted the glass case. Dust rose in a breathless cloud. The scroll was bound by a ribbon of faded crimson. Across the seal was stamped a mark that froze me where I stood. The papal keys crossed with a triangle of light, Rome and the Illuminati bound together. Brenner's voice trembled, though his face remained stone. "This is it. The pact." I unrolled the scroll with care. The parchment cracked but held. Lines of Latin stretched across it, written in two hands. One was ornate, the script of the Curia. The other was sharper, angular, marked with sigils I recognized from the book. I read aloud, my voice low. "By this covenant, the throne of Peter and the order of illumination bind their will as one. Rome shall rule the hearts. The order shall guide the minds, and together they shall preserve dominion against the chaos of nations." My breath caught. This was no legend. This was agreement. A bargain struck in secret while the world believed they were enemies. Further down, the words darkened. "Let the black papal line be the seal of this bond, unseen yet eternal, until such time as the crown of light shall eclipse the crown of Rome." The letters seemed to shiver under the lantern's glow, as if resisting being read aloud. Brenner looked at me sharply. "Do you understand, Nathan? The Illuminati did not merely infiltrate. They were invited." I stared at the parchment, heart pounding. The Black Papacy was no rogue invention. It was the child of Rome itself, born from a pact made in fear or in greed. I rolled the scroll with trembling hands and returned it to the glass. My mouth was dry, my voice raw. "How many know of this?" Brenner's silence was answer enough. I turned to him. "Varro sent me here. Did he know this existed?" His jaw tightened. "He knew enough to fear it. That is why you were chosen." Before I could speak again, a sound echoed through the chamber. Footsteps, soft yet deliberate. The lantern shook in Brenner's grip. From the shadowed archway emerged a figure cloaked in black. His hood fell back to reveal a pale face, eyes sharp as glass. "I see the pact has found new readers," he said in a voice smooth as silk. "How fitting. The Illuminati have waited for another witness." My blood turned cold. The man's gaze fell on the scroll, then on me. He smiled faintly. "The crown does not sleep, Nathan Corwin. It only waits for men like you to carry it forward." The figure in the archway said nothing more. His pale eyes flickered toward the scroll, then toward Father Brenner, before he stepped back into the dark. The sound of his footsteps faded into the catacombs until there was nothing but the echo of my own heart. I wanted to chase him, to drag him into the light and demand answers, but the pact lay between us, its words still burning in my mind. Rome and the Illuminati sworn together, a black papal line to seal their bond. When we returned to the upper chambers, dawn was bleeding through the high windows. Cardinal Varos was waiting. His face betrayed nothing as Brenner set the scroll upon the table between us. "You saw it," Varos said, his voice grave. "The bond written in shadow." I nodded. It was not infiltration. It was agreement. Rome invited the Illuminati into its heart. Varos's hands curled against the table. For a moment he looked older, his eyes sunken under the weight of years. "What you hold is dangerous knowledge. Many would kill to bury it. Others would kill to wield it." "Why bury it at all?" I asked. "The truth is clear. Rome betrayed itself. Let the world know." His gaze sharpened. "The world is not ready." "A revelation of this scale would split the church into ruin. Souls would scatter. Faith itself would fracture. That, Nathan, is why silence has reigned for centuries." I wanted to argue, but Brenner spoke first. "Silence is no longer enough. The black papal line has grown. It breathes still. Last night proved it." Varos's jaw tightened. He glanced at me, then at the scroll. "Then you must understand what that means." He leaned close, his words barely more than a whisper. "There are two thrones in Rome." The room chilled at his confession. "The one the world sees," he continued, "the throne of Peter, upon which the Pope sits in light. And another, unseen, deep in shadow, upon which the black papacy claims its line. Two crowns, two rulers, one public, one hidden." The weight of it pressed down on me, the double throne. A church with two heads, one to shepherd, one to manipulate. "Who sits in shadow now?" I asked. Neither man answered. I pressed harder. "The black papacy cannot exist without a voice. Someone must wear the crown. Someone must speak its commands." Varos closed his eyes briefly, then opened them again, sharp with warning. "If the truth is sought carelessly, you will not survive to tell it. The crown has guardians, both seen and unseen. Do not mistake silence for absence." I felt the book heavy under my arm. Its spine seemed to pulse with heat. "Then this war is not between Rome and the Illuminati anymore. It is inside Rome itself." Varos gave a single nod. "You see clearly." The silence stretched, thick and unyielding. Outside, bells began to toll, their notes rolling through the stones like distant thunder. Finally, Brenner broke the quiet. "If there are two thrones, then there must be two conclaves, one for the Pope the world sees, and one for the Pope the world must never see." Varos's gaze flicked toward him, then back to me. "Your task is not to destroy the hidden throne, not yet. Your task is to find where it sits, who bows before it, and whether the crown of shadow has already chosen its successor." The thought chilled me more than the catacombs had. The black papal line was not myth. It was alive, waiting, perhaps even ruling already. I looked down at the scroll again, its crimson ribbon sealing centuries of lies. In that moment, I understood why the man in the catacombs had smiled. He had not been afraid of discovery. He had been certain that the crown already had its champion, and I realized something worse. It might not matter who sat on which throne. If one ruled the altar and the other ruled the shadows, the world would kneel to both without ever knowing. I straightened, my voice hard. Then I will find the second throne, and if it wears a crown of lies, I will tear it down. Varros studied me in silence, then finally nodded. So be it. The bells above struck again, louder, echoing like judgment, and in their sound, I swore I heard it. 2 notes layered together, one clear, one buried, yet both part of the same toll. The sound of 2 thrones. The Basilica of St. Peter has always been a place where silence speaks louder than words. Its vast dome swallows sound, its marble floors gleam with centuries of devotion. But that morning, the silence was shattered. I had been summoned to a gathering of cardinals, a prayer vigil said to honor a brother taken ill. The nave was crowded with crimson robes and flickering candles. The air smelled of incense and wax, but beneath it I caught something sharper, metallic, almost like blood. I tried to steady my breath. The words of Cardinal Varros still weighed on me. Find where the second throne sits and who bows before it. As the hymn began, I scanned the faces. Cardinal Varros stood to one side, lips moving in quiet prayer. Sister Marielle knelt behind him, her head bowed, her hands folded with precision. Father Brenner loomed near the door, watchful as ever. Then the hymn broke. It happened in the span of a heartbeat. A figure moved through the procession, not in red, but in plain black. The blade flashed once, a silver arc under the dome's light. Cardinal Neris gasped, his prayer cut short as steel plunged into his chest. Chaos erupted, candles toppled, robes scattered like a sea of blood. I rushed forward, but the assassin was already gone, swallowed by the tide of panic. I dropped to my knees beside Neris. His eyes were wide, his lips pale. Blood poured across the marble, staining the hymn books at his side. He clutched my sleeve with a strength that startled me. His mouth opened, and a rasp escaped. The other throne! I leaned closer, desperate. Where? Who sits upon it? His grip tightened, then loosened. His last breath carried a single word that chilled me to the bone. Crowned. His hand fell, lifeless. I stood, blood on my hands, my heart hammering. Around me the basilica dissolved into confusion. Some cried for guards, others shouted prayers. A few stared at me, suspicion already in their eyes, as though truth itself had made me guilty. Varros appeared through the crowd, his face grave. You must leave, Nathan. Now. Brenner seized my arm, dragging me toward a side passage. His voice rumbled close to my ear. This was no random hand. This was orchestration. We burst into the sacristy, the shouts of panic echoing behind us. My knees felt weak, my mind burning. Crowned, I whispered. He said it as he died. Brenner's face was hard. Then the Black Papacy no longer waits. They have chosen their pope. The words fell like stones. The hidden throne, no longer an empty rumor, a figure already crowned, already issuing commands, willing to spill blood in the heart of Christendom. Varros caught up to us, his robe streaked with ash from fallen candles, his eyes locked on mine. You see now why silence is peril. They will not stop. Each death is a message. Each body a step toward the shadow's altar. I pressed my blood-stained hands against the cold stone of the wall. My voice trembled with rage. Then we cannot pray this away. We cannot bury it in archives. The Black Papacy is already here. Brenner's lantern cast long shadows across the corridor. His tone was grim. Then our war is no longer about discovery. It is about survival. The bells above the basilica tolled, heavy and mournful, announcing the death of a cardinal. Their echoes rolled across Rome like thunder. But beneath their sound, in the hollow of my chest, I heard something else. A second toll, faint yet certain, ringing for the throne in shadow, and I knew the basilica's blood was only the first sacrifice. The blood of Cardinal Neris had not yet dried on the marble when the whispers began. Some called it an attack from without, others murmured that the dagger had come from within. In Rome, truth always bled faster than bodies. That night, I returned to my chamber with the black book pressed tight to my chest. Its weight was heavier than ever, as though it had drunk from the basilica's tragedy. When I opened it, new marks crawled across the margins, symbols that had not been there before. A triangle within a crown. A key split in two. I traced them with my finger. The page shivered. Then, faintly, a word emerged, not written but etched into the silence itself. Betrayal. A knock startled me. I slammed the book shut and turned. Sister Mariel stood at the threshold, her hands clasped, her face pale as candle wax. "They're saying you were with him when he died," she whispered, "that his last word was meant for you." My chest tightened. He said crowned. He meant the hidden pope, not me. Her eyes darted to the shadows. "Be careful. In times like this," meaning bends easily. I wanted to trust her, but something in her gaze lingered too long on the book at my side. Later, Father Brenner summoned me to a cloister behind the library. His lantern lit the stone arches, throwing crooked shadows. His voice was low, urgent. "You need to see this." He pressed a folded parchment into my hand. The wax seal was broken. Inside were names written in the same angular script I had seen on the pact. But these names were not of outsiders. They were cardinals, priests, Vatican men. Beside each name, a mark, the all-seeing eye, Illuminati. My throat went dry. "Are you saying our own or theirs?" Brenner's eyes were pale fire. "And not only that, look deeper." He turned the parchment. On the other side were names I recognized from whispered stories of the Order of Illumination, financiers, scholars, men who had stood against Rome for centuries. And beside their names was a second mark, the papal keys. I staggered back. "No, that is impossible." "It is truth," Brenner said, voice like stone. "They infiltrated us, and we infiltrated them. The pact was not the end of rivalry. It was the beginning of infestation. Neither side trusted the other, so each planted spies like seeds in the enemy's soil." The parchment trembled in my hands, my stomach twisted. Allies wearing masks of enemies, enemies wearing masks of allies. The line between the Vatican and the Illuminati had dissolved into a fog of betrayal. Before I could speak, a hiss cut through the corridor. A figure stepped from the shadows, Matteo Vera. His pale face gleamed like polished bone, his smile sharp. "How fitting," he said, his voice soft as silk. "The hunter learns he is prey." Brenner drew a blade from beneath his robe. "Stay back." Vera's smile did not fade. "Do you think your keys are pure, Father? Do you think your thrones are untainted? Your halls are filled with our men, and our lodges are filled with yours. You are us, and we are you." My grip on the parchment tightened. "Why reveal this now?" "Because," Vera said, stepping closer, "the double throne is no longer divided. It hungers for a single voice, and when the crown in shadow speaks, both your spies and ours will kneel together." The words coiled around me like chains. The parchment in my hand seemed to pulse with them. Brenner lunged forward, but Vera slipped back into the darkness, his laughter echoing through the arches. When the silence returned, my breath came ragged. Brennar's blade dripped with nothing but wax from a shattered candle. "We cannot tell who is theirs and who is ours," I said, voice shaking. His eyes met mine, hard as steel. "Then trust no one, not even me." The parchment burned in my hand like a brand. And in that moment I understood. The war was not between Vatican and Illuminati. The war was already inside both, a war of ghosts and masks where every ally might be an enemy and every enemy might be a mirror. The parchment still burned in my memory. Lists of names, Vatican and Illuminati alike, their loyalties blurred until the line between them vanished. Father Brenner's warning echoed in my skull. Trust no one, not even me. But mistrust is poison. It spreads fast, and soon it eats the very ground you stand on. I returned to my chamber to find Sister Marielle waiting. Her hands were folded neatly, her veil shadowing her face. The black book lay on my desk where I had left it. "You should not be here," I told her, her gaze lifted, steady. And yet I am. For a moment I saw her as I always had, the diligent keeper of the library, the quiet voice guiding me through labyrinths of parchment, but that moment cracked when she stepped closer and set something on the table. It was a ring, gold etched with a triangle encircling an eye, the Illuminati. My blood froze. She saw my stare and smiled faintly. "Do not look so betrayed, Nathan. You trusted me because you saw in me what you wanted to see, a helper, a guide, perhaps even an innocent. But there are no innocents in this war." My hand moved toward the book. She noticed, but did not stop me. "You think I am only theirs?" she asked. "No, I am Rome's as well. Both sides claimed me. Both sides fed me secrets. I wore both masks. That is why I know what you do not. The double throne cannot hold. It will collapse. The only question is who stands when the dust settles." Her words were calm, but her eyes burned. "Why show yourself now?" I demanded. "Because you stand at the edge of choosing," she said. "Varos wants silence. Bernard wants war. But the Black Papacy wants a new order, and the Illuminati want a single crown. You will decide which flame consumes the other." I shook my head. "I will not choose between corruption and corruption." Marielle leaned closer, her voice soft as confession. "Then you will burn with both." Before I could answer, a crash thundered through the corridor outside. Shouts followed, boots pounding against stone. Marielle slipped the ring back onto her finger and pulled her veil lower. "They are coming," she whispered. "For you, not me. Think on what I have said." The door burst open. Guards flooded in, their torches casting wild light. Varos entered behind them, his face carved from shadow. "Nathan Corwin," he said, his voice cold, "you are accused of treachery. You will come with us." I turned toward Marielle, but she was already gone, vanished into the tide of crimson robes. Brennar pushed through the guards, fury in his eyes. "This is madness. He saved Neris. Varos silenced him with a gesture. "No more. The Black Papacy grows bold, and now I find one of my own investigators holding their book." The guards seized my arms. The black volume was torn from my desk, its cover gleaming in the firelight. As they dragged me through the halls, I heard the bells toll again. Their echoes rolled through the stones, heavy as judgment. But beneath their toll, I heard another sound, Marielle's words, lingering like a curse. Both sides claimed me. Both sides fed me secrets. The mask of faith had shattered, and in its place was a face that belonged to both Rome and its enemy. I realized then that the greatest danger was not the Black Papacy or the Illuminati alone. It was the fact that their masks were the same, and anyone could wear them. And now, even my faith in the truth itself felt like a mask waiting to crack. The cells beneath the apostolic palace smelled of rust and wet stone. Chains clinked each time I shifted. Days might have passed, or hours. Time had no shape down there. Then one evening the door opened. Torchlight stabbed through the dark. Father Brenner entered, flanked by guards. His expression was carved from granite. "Stand," he ordered. I rose, wrists heavy with iron. The guards led me through winding halls until the walls changed from stone to marble. We descended again, deeper, until the torches revealed a vaulted chamber I had never seen. It was a chapel stripped of its saints. Niches that once held icons were empty. Crosses had been scraped from the walls. At the center stood a circle of thrones, not carved of gold, but of black wood. Upon them sat cardinals, bishops, and strangers whose robes bore no insignia. Their faces were lit only from below, so their eyes glimmered like coals. The air vibrated with whispers. Brenner shoved me forward. The witness arrives. One of the robed figures leaned into the light. It was Cardinal Varos. His face was grave, his eyes measuring. "You have read the pact, Nathan," he said. "You have seen the truth in ink and blood. Now you will see how that truth breathes." A heavy chair scraped against the stone. Sister Mariel stepped into the circle, her veil lowered. She no longer hid the ring on her finger, the golden band with the triangle in the eye. She held it high as if in benediction. "Brothers," she said, her voice calm, "the time of secrecy wanes. The black papal line cannot remain only in the margins of history. The double throne must become one. Tonight, we choose." The thrones erupted in murmurs, half Latin, half tongues I did not recognize. Some voices praised, others protested, but none left their seats. Varos raised a hand. The chamber quieted. "We do not speak of rumors here. We speak of survival. The world tilts toward chaos. Nations fracture, faith withers, kings fall. Only a single crown, united in shadow, can keep dominion." My throat tightened. This is no conclave. This is blasphemy. Brenner's hand pressed hard against my shoulder. Be silent, but I could not. You speak of crowns and dominion while blood still stains the basilica. Neris died for your throne of lies. The circle stirred. Some looked uneasy, others smiled faintly, Mariel's eyes fixed on mine. "You think death is new to Rome. It has always been the coin of power. Do not pretend outrage. You stand here because you are part of it now." A bishop rose, his voice booming. "Let us call the vote. The shadows have waited long enough." An acolyte carried forth an urn. Each figure in turn approached, dropping tokens of black stone into it. The sound echoed like falling teeth. When the urn returned to the center, the acolyte upended it upon the altar. Black stones spilled out except for one, a single white token. Gasps whispered through the chamber. Varos leaned forward, his eyes scanning the faces. "So one of us still clings to the light." Mariel's gaze shifted toward me. "Or perhaps our witness believes he still has a choice." The circle turned. Dozens of eyes pinned me, burning in the torchlight. Varos's voice was iron. "Nathan Corwin, the pact has named you. You will cast the deciding stone." The acolyte stepped forward, holding out two tokens, one black, one white. My chest pounded. I stared at the stones, at the circle of thrones, at Brenar's cold hand still on my shoulder. If I chose white, I marked myself as an enemy of both thrones. If I chose black, I surrendered to the crown of shadow. The silence grew unbearable. I closed my fist around both tokens. The sharp edges bit into my palm, and for the first time since this began, I realized the truth. They did not want my loyalty. They wanted my complicity. I opened my hand. The stones clattered to the floor. "I choose neither," I said. My voice rang hard against the chamber walls. "I will not crown corruption, not in light, not in shadow." The chamber erupted. Some shouted in fury, others in awe. Guards surged forward, but Varos raised a hand to halt them. His eyes burned into mine. "Then you have declared war on both thrones." The torches guttered, smoke rising toward the vault, and in that smoke I swore I saw the faint outline of a crown hovering like an omen above us all. The conclave dissolved into chaos after I let the stones fall. Voices clashed like swords, some cursing my defiance, others hailing it as proof the crown demanded more than obedience. In the midst of the uproar, a bell tolled from deep within the chamber. Not the bells of Rome above, but a hidden chime, low and mournful. The circle froze. Heads turned toward the far archway as heavy doors creaked open. A figure entered, cloaked in black velvet. His steps were deliberate, his presence heavier than the silence that followed him. Guards knelt as he passed. Even Varos lowered his eyes. When the hood fell back, my breath caught. It was Cardinal Neris, but that was impossible. I had watched him die in St. Peter's Basilica, felt his blood on my hands, heard his last word. Yet here he stood, pale and thin, his chest bound in dark cloth. The wound was gone, or hidden, but his eyes gleamed with an unnatural fire. Mariel bowed deeply. Behold the one chosen by the crown of shadow. Varos's voice trembled for the first time. The Black Pope, Neris, no, the thing that wore his face, raised his hands. A ring glinted on his finger, wrought in iron and set with a stone, black as coal. When he spoke, the chamber shook. My brothers, my sisters. I have passed through death and returned. The crown has marked me, and now I give you the first benediction of the throne in shadow. The acolytes dragged forth 3 men bound in chains, priests, their robes torn, their mouths gagged. Their eyes pleaded as they were forced to kneel before the altar. Neris lifted his hands. These are traitors, men who clung to the illusion of light, but in their blood, the new order is sealed. The guards pressed blades to the priests' throats. I lurched forward, but Brenner's grip crushed my shoulder. His whisper burned my ear. Do not move. Not yet. One by one, the blades flashed. Crimson sprayed across the black altar. The priests collapsed, their bodies twitching before the silence swallowed them. The smell of blood filled the chamber. My stomach turned, rage clawing through me. This is not a benediction, I spat. It is murder. Neris turned his gaze on me, his lips curling. Murder is what light calls it. We call it consecration. Every kingdom is baptized in blood. Why should ours be different? The circle erupted in chants, a rhythm rising like thunder. Gloria in tenebris, glory in the darkness. The shadows seemed to thicken, wrapping around the thrones, feeding on the spilled blood. For an instant, I thought I saw the black crown itself flicker above Neris's head, not carved or painted, but alive, woven from smoke and fire. Varos stepped into the circle, his voice ringing. The double throne is ended. Rome shall kneel. The world shall bend. The black papacy rises again. The chants grew louder. Gloria in tenebris. Brennar's grip trembled on my shoulder. His face was grim, but his eyes burned with something fierce. Do you see now, Nathan? There is no room left for neutrality. If this crown spreads beyond these walls, there will be no Rome left to save. I stared at the corpses on the altar, their blood soaking into the cracks of the stone, the first blessing of the shadow throne. And I understood. This was not only a coronation, it was a declaration of war. The bells tolled again, deep and relentless, shaking the chamber as if the very stones mourned. And in their echo I heard the truth. The black benediction had begun, and it would not stop until the world itself was drenched in its sacrament. The chamber reeked of blood and smoke. The 3 priests lay sprawled across the altar, their crimson seeping into the cracks of black stone. Above them, Neris, or the thing that wore his name, stood crowned in shadow, the iron ring gleaming on his finger. The first benediction has been spoken, he declared. His voice carried like thunder. Now the throne of light and the throne of shadow are one. The circle of cardinals and strangers roared their approval. Gloria in tenebris. The words beat against my chest like war drums. I clenched the black book tighter under my arm. Inside were the names, the symbols, the pact, the entire anatomy of the corruption. If I carried it beyond these walls, I could expose them. The world would know. But what would follow? Faith splintered, nations collapsing, millions left adrift. Father Brenner pulled me aside, his face hard. This is your moment. Strike now. How? I hissed. There are dozens of them and one of me. His eyes blazed. Not strike with steel, Strike with choice. The book. Either burn it here and end the Black Papacy's grip on you, or take it out into the world and let its fire consume more than thrones. Neris's gaze fell on me. His lips curled into a smile that chilled my blood. Come forward, Nathan Corwin. Bear witness to the last crown. The circle parted. Torches flared. I stepped into the light, my breath sharp and ragged. Neris extended his hand, the iron ring glinting. You hold the book. You hold the bridge between thrones. Give it to me and kneel, or keep it and drown with the dying world. The chant swelled, pressing on my ears until I could barely hear myself think. I lifted the book. Its cover felt alive, pulsing, whispering in words just beyond comprehension. I could almost see the crown in its leather, glowing faintly, as if daring me to decide. For heartbeat, I imagined handing it over. Ending this war by surrender, saving myself. But then I saw the blood at the altar, the corpses offered as sacrifice. I heard again the dying gasp of Cardinal Neris in St. Peter's, warning me of the crown. And I remembered Sister Marielle's words. Both sides claimed me. Both sides fed me secrets. This war was not about sides. It was about corruption itself. My hand moved toward the nearest torch. Flames licked against the spine of the book. The whispers inside rose into a wail. No! Neris's voice cracked the chamber. His hand shot out, the ring blazing black fire. The book shrieked as the fire took it. Pages curled, ink bled. Symbols warped into smoke. The air reeked of burning leather and ancient lies. The thrones erupted into chaos. Some lunged toward me. Others fell back in horror. Brenner drew steel, holding the closest at bay. Neris roared, the crown of shadow flickering above his head. You fool! Without the book, the proof dies with you. The world will never know the truth. The fire spread across the altar, devouring the blood, the parchment, even the corpses. The smoke rose thick, coiling into the dome like a dark serpent. I shouted above the uproar, my voice breaking. Better the world lives in doubt than dies in certainty. For an instant, the crown above Neris faltered. His eyes blazed with fury. This is not an end. It is only delay. The Black Papacy does not burn. It waits. The flames roared higher. Guards dragged me back as stone cracked overhead. Brennar shoved me through the archway. Go, Nathan! We fled through corridors filled with smoke and screams. Behind us, the chamber collapsed in fire and falling stone. The last I saw of Neris was his figure framed in flame, the black crown hovering above him unbroken. When we finally reached the open air, dawn had begun to break. Bells rang wildly across Rome, their notes colliding, confused, frantic. I collapsed on the steps of the basilica, my hands blackened with ash. The book was gone, consumed by fire, but its memory, its truth, lived inside me. Brenner stood beside me, his face streaked with soot. He said nothing, only watched the smoke rise from the palace behind us. I looked toward the sunrise. The light was pale, fragile, easily broken, and I wondered if I had done right. By destroying the proof, I'd saved the world from immediate ruin, but I had also ensured the Black Papacy could deny, could rebuild, could rise again. The crown was not destroyed, only hidden, and I knew my war was far from over.